The morning started just like any other, buses rolling in, students half awake, clutching backpacks, teachers sipping lukewarm coffee. No one expected what was about to unfold. At first glance, it seemed like just another school day. But when a quiet teenage girl stepped onto the bus and whispered 3 words to the driver, everything changed. The driver froze. His eyes widened for a split second before he nodded subtly. No one else noticed, except for one boy sitting near the front. His name was Jordan, a 16-year-old black student who usually kept to himself. Kind-hearted but quiet, he'd become used to being overlooked, just another face in the crowd. That morning, though, fate had other plans. Just moments before the girl's whisper, Jordan had done something most people wouldn't even notice. He gave up his seat to a pregnant white woman who looked exhausted and overwhelmed. She gave him a soft thank you and sat down, breathing heavily. But what she did next caught Jordan completely off guard. As she stood up to leave, she pressed a small folded note into his hand without a word. He stared at it, confused. Before he could open it, the bus came to a screeching stop in front of the school. Police cars began pulling up silently, lights off but engines running. Then came the black SUVs. The kind that make everyone's heart skip a beat. Agents in dark suits moved with precision, quickly locking down the school before most students even realized what was happening. Inside the bus, time seemed to freeze. The girl who whispered to the driver kept her head down, hands trembling in her lap. Jordan, still clutching the note, felt a strange chill run through him. Something big was going on, something that started with those 3 whispered words and a simple act of kindness. But what was in that note? Why did the girl look so terrified? And what had the FBI come looking for? Everything was about to unravel, and no one saw it coming. Jordan sat frozen, the small folded note pressed tightly in his palm. He could feel his heart pounding as he glanced around the bus. No one else seemed to notice the growing tension, at least not yet. The girl who whispered to the driver hadn't moved since. Her hoodie was pulled low, her eyes fixed on the floor, but her leg bounced nervously. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Outside, the scene was getting heavier. Dark-suited agents moved quickly but quietly, speaking into earpieces, scanning the area like they were looking for someone. The school principal had come outside, his face pale and confused, speaking with one of the agents. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a drill. This was real. And dangerous. Jordan glanced again at the note. It was plain, no markings, just one neat fold. A simple paper, but it suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He thought about opening it, but something told him to wait. It didn't feel like the right moment. There was something about the woman who gave it to him, the way she looked at him, almost like she was asking for help without saying a word. The bus driver hadn't moved either. He looked shaken but alert, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. That girl, why would she whisper something to him? What did she say? And why did he respond like he was just handed a secret code? Jordan looked at the girl again. She couldn't have been more than 15, small, with dark curly hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked like someone who'd seen too much too soon. Like someone carrying something too heavy for her age. And Jordan, though still unsure why, felt a pull toward her, a feeling that whatever was going on, she might be the center of it. The bus door finally hissed open. A tall man with a badge on his belt stepped in, his eyes scanning the bus quickly. "Everyone stay seated. No one gets off yet," he said, his voice calm but firm. His presence shifted the mood instantly. Students who were half asleep suddenly sat upright. Phones came out, but the agent quickly said, "No pictures, no recording. Please put your phones away." Jordan's fingers curled tighter around the note. He slipped it quietly into his pocket, hoping no one noticed. The agent stepped forward, pausing near the driver. They whispered briefly. The driver nodded again, this time more slowly. Then the agent walked down the aisle, glancing at each face. When he reached the girl, he stopped. "Miss, what's your name?" She didn't answer right away. Her shoulders tightened. "Lena," she finally whispered. The agent gave a small nod. "You said something to the driver. Can you tell me what that was?" Lena shook her head. "I want to talk to someone safe." "You're safe now." She looked up at him for the first time. Her eyes were red, swollen. But she didn't cry. "I want to talk to Agent Harris. He knows." The name seemed to mean something. The agent paused, then spoke quietly into his earpiece. A few seconds later, he nodded. He's on his way. Lena relaxed slightly, but her hands were still clenched in her lap. Jordan watched her closely. What could a girl like her know that would make the FBI show up this fast? And what did Agent Harris know? Suddenly, Jordan's phone vibrated. He slipped it out and saw a message from an unknown number. Whatever she said, don't trust anyone. Keep that note safe. They're watching. He stared at the screen, his throat going dry. He didn't recognize the number. No name. No clue who sent it. He looked around the bus. No one was on their phones. No one even seemed to be looking his way. But someone knew he had the note. And someone was watching. Before he could think, the agent near Lena stepped back as another man climbed onto the bus. Older, with graying hair and sharp eyes, he carried a kind of stillness that made the air feel heavier. This had to be Agent Harris. He knelt in front of Lena and spoke softly. You did the right thing coming forward. But we need to move fast. Are you sure about what you saw? Lena nodded. I saw him. He was in the house. He had the files. I know his face. And he said something about the school. Jordan's stomach flipped. Files? What kind of files? And what did this have to do with the school? Agent Harris glanced up at the other agent. We need to sweep the school now. Lock it down fully. Get the K9 units here. And someone find the woman who got off at the last stop, tall, white, pregnant. She might be our key. Jordan's heart skipped. The woman. The note. He didn't say anything. Not yet. But he could feel the walls closing in. Whatever Lena saw, whatever this was about, he was already deeper in than he realized. Outside, more agents moved in. The principal looked increasingly frantic as parents started to arrive, confused by the flashing lights and locked gates. Rumors were already spreading. Bomb threat. Kidnapping. An armed suspect. No one knew the truth, but the truth, it seemed, was stranger and more dangerous than anything they could guess. Inside the bus, Jordan couldn't stop thinking about the message. Don't trust anyone. But who could he trust? Lena. Agent Harris. The woman who gave him the note. His fingers twitched toward his pocket again. He wanted to read the note. He needed to. But something kept holding him back. And then, almost like fate was pushing him forward, Lena turned her head and looked straight at him. Their eyes met. Her lips parted slightly. And in a soft voice only he could hear, she said, You have it, don't you? Jordan's blood ran cold. She knew. Somehow, she knew. He didn't answer. But in that moment, everything changed. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was in the middle of something much bigger than he'd ever imagined. Something that hadn't even started yet. Jordan's fingers stayed frozen in his pocket, gripping the note like it was the only thing anchoring him to reality. Lena's voice echoed in his head, You have it, don't you? And though she hadn't said it loud enough for anyone else to hear, he felt the weight of those words like a spotlight. He didn't respond, just gave the slightest shake of his head, pretending not to understand. But she didn't press him. She just looked away, like she already knew the answer. Outside the bus, chaos was beginning to hum just beneath the surface. More officers had arrived, surrounding the school's perimeter. Parents were shouting from behind the gate, confused and desperate to get to their children. Staff were huddled near the main entrance, phones glued to their ears, trying to get answers. Inside the building, classes had been paused, announcements made. Lockdown was in full effect. From the outside, it still wasn't clear what was happening. The news hadn't picked it up yet. But it wouldn't be long. This kind of operation didn't stay quiet for long. Back on the bus, Agent Harris stood up, looked around once, and then turned to Jordan. You, he said, his voice calm but direct. Come with me. Jordan's stomach dropped. Why? He asked, his voice cracking a little. You're not in trouble. We just have some questions. He hesitated. Lena was watching. Her expression unreadable now. The driver gave him a quick glance in the rearview mirror, almost like a warning. Jordan stood slowly, every step toward the agent feeling like a test. As he walked past Lena, she whispered again, barely loud enough to register. Be careful what you say. He didn't have time to ask what she meant. The next moment, he was stepping off the bus and into a world that had suddenly turned cold and unfamiliar. They didn't take him far. Just to a van parked a few feet away. Inside, it was quiet. Dim, a single chair facing another. A camera mounted in the corner. Agent Harris sat across from him, folding his hands. Jordan, right? Jordan nodded. We just need to know a few things. You were sitting near the girl, Lena. Did she say anything to you before or after she spoke to the driver? Jordan hesitated. No, not really. Harris studied him. Did you see her pass anything to anyone? Jordan shook his head. No. She just sat down. There was a pause. Then the agent leaned in slightly. Jordan, we know someone handed you something before the lockdown. A note. Do you still have it? The air inside the van thickened. Jordan's hands were sweating now, but he kept his face blank. No one gave me anything. The agent didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. Okay. If anything comes back to you, even something small, come find me. Jordan was released back to the bus after that, but nothing felt normal anymore. Lena didn't look at him this time. The rest of the students were whispering now, making guesses about the lockdown, checking for updates online. Rumors were spreading fast: bomb scare, active shooter, missing person. No one knew the truth, but everyone could feel something serious was going down. Back in his seat, Jordan pulled out the note, finally, shielding it with his backpack. It was short. Just 5 words. He's not who you think. That was it. No name. No clue who he was. But something about those words made Jordan's skin crawl. He folded the note again, hiding it back in his pocket. Inside the school, things were unraveling. A teacher, Mr. Carson, had suddenly gone missing. No one had seen him since the previous afternoon. His car was still in the lot. His classroom door locked. He hadn't answered any messages. And then came another twist: the pregnant woman who handed Jordan the note. She wasn't on any bus stop lists. No one knew who she was. Cameras caught her getting off the bus, but after that, she vanished. Gone before she reached the school. No one had seen her since. Meanwhile, Lena had been taken inside by Harris. She was placed in a private room, monitored by officers. She refused to speak to anyone else. Her only request? A phone call. Not to her parents, not to a lawyer, but to someone she called Uncle Eli. A name that didn't show up in any school or family records. That's when another piece of the puzzle fell into place. A few miles from the school, a small, run-down house was raided by agents. Inside, they found boxes of papers, coded documents, and photos including pictures of the school, certain students, staff members. And in one folder, a photo of Lena, circled in red ink. Another folder had Jordan's name on it. And a sticky note attached with 2 words, "He knows." The FBI didn't release those findings publicly. But whispers among the agents had already started. Someone had been watching the school for months. Possibly years. Someone with access. Someone who didn't belong. As evening approached, the school was still on lockdown. Lena hadn't said another word. Jordan hadn't shared the note. And the pregnant woman, the mystery figure who set everything in motion, was still missing. Back at home that night, Jordan sat in his room, phone off, windows locked. His mind raced with questions. Why him? Why that note? Who was he? And what did Lena really know? Down the street, a dark sedan sat quietly under a broken streetlight. Inside, someone was watching his house, unseen. The real story was only just beginning. The night stretched on, and Jordan's mind wouldn't stop spinning. He couldn't shake the feeling that every move he made was being watched, every step leading him deeper into something darker. The words from the note, "He's not who you think," repeated over and over in his head, each time with a little more weight. Who was he? And why was Jordan suddenly involved in something so much bigger than he could have ever imagined? He had tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Every creak in the floorboards, every gust of wind that rattled the windows, seemed like a signal someone was close. He pulled the blanket over his head, hoping for some peace, but it didn't come. His phone, which had been turned off, vibrated suddenly, making him jump. It was a text. From an unknown number. "You're running out of time. Be careful who you trust. He's coming for you." Jordan felt the blood drain from his face. Who was texting him? Who even knew where he was? He quickly locked the door to his room, the walls feeling thinner by the minute. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Whoever he was, This was no longer some small, strange incident, it was escalating. The next morning, Jordan barely had time to process the message. His parents were frantic, on edge from the news of the lockdown still hanging in the air. He didn't tell them about the note or the texts, he couldn't. They wouldn't understand. They'd just worry more. He had to find out what was really happening. But there was one person who knew something, Lena. If she could just tell him what she had seen, maybe it would make sense. She was the key. He was sure of it. Jordan's decision was made. He couldn't sit back anymore. He had to go to the school, even if it meant breaking the rules. Even if it meant putting himself in danger. The bus stop was empty when he arrived, just like the night before. He hadn't expected anyone to be waiting for him. Lena was gone, taken somewhere safe, or so they said. But that didn't matter. What mattered was finding answers. He slipped past the gates of the school, staying low and trying to avoid the FBI agents still swarming the area. They were everywhere, their eyes sharp and watchful. But Jordan had learned something during the past 24 hours, he was becoming invisible. No one looked twice at a teenager wandering around with a backpack, not when there were bigger things to focus on. Inside, the school was eerily quiet. The usual hum of students, the chatter between classes, it was all gone. Empty halls, locked classrooms, and the distant sound of muffled conversations in the principal's office. He moved swiftly, his heart pounding in his chest, taking turns and hiding in the shadows. It was almost like he was part of the operation now, playing a dangerous game that no one else knew about. Then he saw it, the door to the janitor's closet, slightly ajar. Inside, Lena's voice, soft but sharp, cut through the silence. "You shouldn't be here." Jordan froze. He hadn't expected her to be here, not after everything. He stepped forward slowly, his breath shaky. "I had to come," he whispered. "You need to tell me what's going on. What did you see? Why are they looking for you?" Lena didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were wide with fear, her face pale, like she had seen something too terrifying to even speak of. Finally, she exhaled slowly, glancing over her shoulder to make sure they weren't being watched. "Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see," she said quietly. "And now they're trying to cover it up. They'll do anything to protect him." Jordan's pulse quickened. "Who? Who are you talking about?" Lena's eyes met his for a brief moment before she looked away again. "It's not just the school. It's bigger. Much bigger. The man behind all of this, the one who's pulling the strings, he's been hiding in plain sight." Jordan's mind raced. The tension in the air seemed to thicken with every passing second. This wasn't just some local investigation. This was something far more dangerous. "Who is he?" Jordan asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lena hesitated, her breath catching in her throat. "You don't understand. If I tell you, they'll come after you, too. But I already know something's going on. I have to know." Lena bit her lip, her hands shaking. "He's someone you trust. Someone you'd never suspect." Jordan's chest tightened. The weight of her words hit him like a punch. Someone he trusted. His mind scrambled for answers, trying to piece together any clue that could make sense of this. His family. His friends. Who could it be? Before he could ask more, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. Lena's eyes widened in panic. "Go," she hissed, shoving him toward the door. "You have to get out of here now." Jordan didn't argue. He turned and ran, feeling the coldness of the school hallways pressing against him, the fear pounding in his chest. But as he reached the exit, he saw something that froze him in his tracks. Standing in the doorway, blocking his path, was none other than Agent Harris. "Leaving already, Jordan?" he asked, his voice smooth, his eyes cold. Jordan's heart skipped a beat. The agent's face was unreadable, but there was something in the air, something dark, something ominous. "Where's Lena?" Harris asked, his eyes narrowing. "You two have been quite cozy lately. Did you really think you could hide from us?" Jordan's mind raced. He didn't have a plan. He didn't know what to do. But one thing was certain, he wasn't getting out of this school without answers. And now, he had to figure out just how far Agent Harris was willing to go to keep the truth buried. The walls were closing in. Every decision Jordan made seemed to push him further into the unknown, and with each step, the danger grew more real. The truth was just beyond reach, but who could he trust to help him find it before it was too late? The stakes had never been higher, and Jordan knew he had to act fast. Jordan's heart hammered in his chest as Agent Harris stepped closer, his every movement controlled, calculating. The moment stretched out, an unspoken tension hanging between them. Jordan's mind scrambled, looking for a way out, a way to break free, but every angle he considered led him back to the same inescapable truth: Agent Harris was not who he appeared to be. "Where's Lena?" Harris repeated, his voice steady, almost too steady, as if he were asking a question that already had an answer. Jordan's mouth went dry. He glanced toward the exit, calculating the distance, but there was no way he could outrun an FBI agent. Not with the way the air was charged around them, the heavy presence of authority and hidden threats in every step the agent took. I don't know," Jordan stammered, his voice betraying his panic. He wasn't sure whether to lie or tell the truth, but one thing was certain: he was being pushed into a corner, and every move he made only made the walls close in tighter. Harris didn't seem surprised by the answer. He nodded once, as if already knowing what Jordan would say. "You're lying," he said flatly. "But that's okay. You're just a kid. You don't understand the stakes here." Jordan's blood ran cold. The calmness in Harris's voice made everything feel wrong, like he was talking to someone who had already lost the battle, as if it were all part of a bigger plan. Suddenly, there was a sharp noise from behind them, an unfamiliar voice cutting through the tension. "Agent Harris, we need you in the back office now." The voice was urgent, almost frantic. Harris looked over his shoulder, eyes narrowing at the interruption. For just a moment, his expression shifted, something flickered in his eyes. It was quick, too quick for Jordan to fully process, but it was enough to make his stomach drop. Harris turned away, motioning for Jordan to stay put. "Don't move," he said, his tone cold as he stepped toward the office. "This isn't over." Jordan watched, frozen, as Harris disappeared into the hallway. He had only a few moments, but it felt like an eternity. He glanced back at the door leading to the outside, freedom, or so he hoped. But something nagged at him, a feeling that he couldn't shake. There was no way Harris would leave him alone like this. No way he'd just let Jordan slip away. As the minutes ticked by, Jordan's mind raced. He needed answers. He needed to know who was behind this, who was manipulating the agents, who was controlling everything from the shadows. The school, the lockdown, Lena, the mysterious woman, the note. All of it had to be connected. His eyes darted back to the door to the janitor's closet, where he'd last seen Lena. It was a risk, but it was the only lead he had. Maybe she knew something, maybe she'd left a clue behind. He crept toward the closet, moving quickly but quietly, his breath held tight in his chest. When he reached for the handle, a sudden sound froze him in place, a soft click from behind him. "Thought you could escape that easily?" Jordan spun around to find Harris standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. His eyes, though, were different now, darker, colder, with an edge that sent a chill crawling up Jordan's spine. "You didn't think I'd leave you unattended, did you?" Harris's voice was low, almost amused. "I've been watching you, Jordan. Every move you make." Jordan's mind raced. He tried to think, tried to formulate a plan, but there was nothing. The walls were closing in again, and this time, there was no way out. "Let me guess," Harris continued, stepping forward. "You think you've figured it all out? Lena, the note, the strange woman, everything is connected, right?" Jordan swallowed, his throat tight with fear. He didn't answer. Harris didn't need him to. "Here's the thing," Harris said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're not supposed to know any of this. Not yet. You were never meant to be involved." Jordan felt his pulse quicken, his chest tightening. "What are you talking about?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "You see," Harris said, pacing slowly now, his eyes never leaving Jordan's face, "there's always more going on behind the scenes. People think they know the story, but they don't. They never do." Jordan's heart sank. Something was wrong, everything felt wrong. And in that moment, something clicked. This wasn't just about him. It was about something much bigger than he could have imagined. The FBI, the school, Lena, the woman, they were all pieces in a game he didn't even fully understand yet. "There's a reason Lena said she wasn't supposed to talk to you," Harris went on. "She was part of a bigger plan. And so were you, Jordan." A cold chill ran down Jordan's spine. He tried to back away, but Harris's presence loomed like a wall. "Lena was right," Harris said, his voice almost playful now. "You're in way over your head. And now, we're going to make sure you stay quiet." For good. Jordan's mind spun. This wasn't just an FBI operation. This wasn't about investigating crimes or catching criminals. It was bigger than that, it was about control. And Jordan was in the middle of it. He felt trapped. The door to freedom was closed. The truth was slipping further away with each passing second. But just as Harris reached for him, another figure appeared in the hallway. This time, it was someone Jordan hadn't expected to see. It was the pregnant woman. She was standing at the end of the hallway, looking directly at Jordan, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and urgency. Without saying a word, she motioned for him to follow her. Jordan froze. His instincts screamed at him to trust her, but something held him back. She was connected to this. She had to be. Harris noticed her, too. His face hardened. "Get out of here," he snapped, his voice laced with anger. The woman didn't move. She just stared at Jordan. And then, without warning, she turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Jordan with a choice. Stay with Harris, who was closing in on him, or follow the woman who, for all he knew, was as much a part of this mystery as Lena. His heart pounding, Jordan made a decision. He turned and ran, his footsteps echoing in the silence as he chased after her, deeper into the unknown. The stakes were higher than ever. The truth was closer than ever. But so was the danger. And nothing was as it seemed. Jordan's heart was pounding in his ears as he sprinted after the woman. Every step seemed to echo through the empty halls, and the uncertainty gnawed at him with each turn he took. The pregnant woman had vanished into the shadows, but Jordan wasn't going to let her get away. She was his only lead now, the only person who might hold the answers to the mess he'd found himself in. He rounded a corner and skidded to a stop. There she was, standing in front of an old storage closet, her face pale but determined. She turned to face him as he approached, her eyes wide with an urgency that matched his own. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Jordan felt the weight of her words, but he couldn't stop now. "I don't care," he said, his voice raw with desperation. "You know what's going on, don't you? You're the only one who can help me." The woman glanced over her shoulder, her eyes darting nervously. "I'm not supposed to talk to you," she said, almost as if to herself. "But, you need to understand something. You've been in danger from the start." Jordan took a step forward. "What do you mean? What's happening here?" The woman took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she clasped them in front of her. "You've been chasing a lie. The FBI, Lena, all of it, it's part of a bigger game. And now, they know you're too close to the truth." Jordan's head spun. What game? What truth? The woman's eyes were full of something like regret, but there was no time to unpack it. "I was sent here to keep an eye on you," she said quietly, her voice barely audible. "To protect you from what's coming. But I'm not the one who has the power. You've been manipulated from the start, Jordan. And now, you've learned too much." Before Jordan could respond, he heard the familiar sound of footsteps, heavy, purposeful. "Harris." "No," the woman hissed, her face contorting with panic. "You have to get out of here now. Run, Jordan, run." She shoved him toward the back exit, her hands trembling. But just as Jordan was about to push open the door, he froze. Harris appeared at the end of the hallway, his face dark with anger. "Running now, are we?" Harris called out, his voice chilling in the stillness. He took a step forward, his eyes never leaving Jordan. "You think you've figured this all out, don't you? But you've only scratched the surface." Jordan's mind was racing. He glanced between the woman and Harris. The weight of the situation was unbearable. It was clear now there was no escape without facing whatever truth lay on the other side. The woman had tried to warn him, but now it was too late. There was no turning back. "Who are you?" Jordan demanded, his voice shaking with the gravity of the moment. "What's going on? Who's behind this?" Harris didn't answer immediately. He just took another step forward, his eyes narrowing. "The truth. You really want to know the truth?" Before Jordan could reply, the woman stepped in front of him, blocking Harris's path. She looked straight at him, her face hardening with determination. "You don't get to control this anymore," she said, her voice fierce despite the fear in her eyes. "You don't get to dictate who lives and who dies. Not this time." For the first time, Jordan saw something in Harris's eyes, something vulnerable. His mask slipped just for a moment, and the shift in his expression made Jordan's stomach twist. but it was too quick to fully understand. Then, the woman pulled something from her pocket, a small, sleek device. She pressed a button, and suddenly, everything changed. The lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. A loud, mechanical noise echoed through the halls, followed by the sound of several doors locking, one by one. Then, the hum of machinery and computers starting up filled the air. It was as if the entire building had shifted, the walls closing in with a low, ominous sound. "What did you do?" Harris demanded, his voice laced with fury. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she turned to Jordan, her face calm but urgent. "This is your chance. Run, now, before it's too late." Jordan didn't need to be told twice. He bolted for the exit, his legs moving faster than he thought possible, driven by an adrenaline he hadn't known he had left. The darkness swallowed him up, the sounds of Harris's furious shouts fading behind him as he sprinted toward the street outside. When he finally made it to the safety of the alley, panting and breathless, he stopped and looked around. The streets were quiet, empty, too quiet. There was no sign of the woman, no trace of Harris. He was alone. But something still didn't feel right. The events of the past few days were swirling in his mind like a storm, and he couldn't escape the nagging sense that the truth was slipping further and further from his grasp. Jordan pulled out his phone, fingers trembling as he tried to call Lena. The screen flashed with a message, "No service." Panic surged through him. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. How could he be this close to the truth and still feel like he was chasing shadows? Just then, a new message popped up on his phone, unexpected and chilling. "You thought you could escape. But the truth will always find you, Jordan. Always." The words hit him like a punch to the gut, and the realization struck him harder than anything before. He'd been played. All of it, Lena, the woman, Harris, it had all been part of something bigger. A plan. A setup. He wasn't meant to uncover the truth. He was meant to be the distraction. As he looked up from his phone, Jordan realized the true twist. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. Jordan stood in the alley, the harsh glow of the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. His heart pounded against his chest, and his hands shook as he stared at the message on his phone. The words seemed to burn through him, every syllable sinking deeper into his mind. "You thought you could escape. But the truth will always find you, Jordan. Always." Who had sent it? And what did it mean? Was this some kind of warning? Or was it a taunt from someone who had been pulling the strings all along? He had to figure it out. He had to get to the bottom of this. Turning, he started walking down the street, the sound of his footsteps echoing off the walls of the buildings around him. His mind was racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew was just a facade. The woman, the pregnant one, had tried to warn him, but she had disappeared. And Harris? Harris had been part of something much bigger than he could ever have imagined. Suddenly, a thought hit him with the force of a lightning strike. The message didn't just come from anyone, it had come from someone who knew exactly how to get to him. Someone who had been watching him all along. Someone who wanted him to know the truth, but only at the right time. But why? Why now? The confusion was overwhelming. But something inside Jordan clicked. This was bigger than a mere conspiracy, it was a puzzle, and he was the missing piece. And no matter how dark it seemed, he needed to find the answers. His phone buzzed again. This time, he hesitated before looking at it, but curiosity got the better of him. The new message was short, direct. "Meet me at the old diner on Oak Street. Midnight." His breath caught. Oak Street. He knew that diner. It was the one that had been abandoned for years, the one people said had been shut down after a series of strange disappearances. It wasn't far from here, but it felt like a world away. Jordan didn't think twice. Without wasting a moment, he started heading toward Oak Street. The night air was cool, and the silence of the streets felt suffocating, as if the city itself were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As he approached the diner, the familiar neon sign flickered weakly in the distance. The old building looked desolate, the windows cracked and dirty, the doors locked and rusted. But there was something about it that felt like the calm before the storm. Jordan stood at the entrance for a moment, staring at the dilapidated diner. His nerves were on edge, every instinct screaming at him to turn back, but he couldn't. Not now. He pushed the door open, wincing as the rusty hinges creaked loudly in the quiet of the night. The air inside was stale, the smell of dust and decay thick in his nostrils. The once bright neon lights were dim, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He moved further inside, stepping carefully over the broken tiles. The diner had been abandoned for so long that it looked like a ghost of its former self, its once popular counter now covered in layers of grime and cobwebs. Then, from the corner of the room, a figure emerged. It was the woman. The pregnant woman. She stepped out from behind a broken partition, her face now illuminated by the faint glow of the neon lights. She looked different now, more determined, more composed, as if the fear that had gripped her before had finally been replaced by something else. "Jordan," she said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the stillness of the diner. "You made it." He didn't say anything at first, his eyes scanning her face, trying to make sense of everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" The woman looked down, her hands trembling as she pressed them against her stomach. "I couldn't. I was part of something I didn't understand at first. But I know now. It was never just about you. It was about something bigger. You were always meant to uncover the truth, Jordan. The truth about what's really going on." Jordan's mind raced. What's going on? Who's behind this? Who's controlling everything? The woman swallowed hard, her gaze flickering toward the door, as if checking to see if anyone was watching. "The FBI. They're not what they seem. They've been infiltrated by people who want to control the narrative. The disappearances, the corruption, it's all part of a much larger scheme. And you," she said, looking directly at Jordan, "you were part of their plan all along." Jordan's heart dropped. "Part of their plan? What do you mean?" "The note, the seat, Lena's involvement, everything. You were supposed to uncover these things, to dig deeper. But you were never supposed to find out who was really in charge." She paused, a look of sorrow crossing her face. "The people behind this, they've been controlling everything, pulling the strings, using the FBI as a cover for their operation." Jordan stepped back, his mind spinning. "And the FBI? Harris? What do they have to do with all of this?" "The FBI agents like Harris aren't real agents. They're part of the network, just like me. I was a pawn, just like you. But some of us started to wake up. We started asking questions. That's when they started to target us." Jordan's mind was reeling, the pieces slowly starting to fall into place, but it didn't make any sense. "But if you're working with them, why did you help me? Why did you warn me?" She sighed, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and hope. "Because I believe you can stop it. I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone like you, someone who hasn't been tainted by this world. Someone who could see the bigger picture and take it all down." Jordan felt the weight of her words. This was bigger than anything he could have imagined. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everything that had been hidden, the truth that had been buried for so long. And now, he had to decide what to do with it. "Where do we go from here?" Jordan asked, his voice steady despite the chaos in his head. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to him, her fingers shaking. "This is the key. Everything you need to know is inside. But be careful. The people behind this will do anything to keep their secret hidden." Jordan took the envelope, his hands cold and clammy. He knew that whatever came next would change everything. And then, before he could say anything else, she was gone, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as she had appeared. Jordan was left standing there, alone, with the envelope in his hands. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew one thing: the truth had a price. And he was ready to pay it. As he turned and walked out of the diner, the weight of the world on his shoulders, Jordan realized that the battle was far from over. The people who had tried to control the narrative were still out there, and they weren't going to let him bring their secrets to light without a fight. But he wasn't afraid. He was determined. He would find the answers. And when he did, nothing would ever be the same again.